Welcome to Elevated Sports. I'm Kyle Johnson.
I'm Billy Mock.
Today, we are going to trash talk our favorite team. Our least favorite team.
Our favorite team to trash talk.
Yes.
The Houston Trastros.
Yes.
Also known as the Houston Astros.
Where do you even begin?
You may have seen in the news that the Astros gave their apologies. Jim Crane, their owner, said after the allegations came out and after the suspensions that the Astros would be apologizing at spring training. Now, let's use the word apologizing very loosely. It wasn't much of an apology.
Yeah.
Jim Crane said his, whatever he had to say. Didn't have much of a problem with Jim Crane, what he said. He wasn't part of the whole sign stealing thing. He didn't even really know it was a thing until the allegations came out. He's the one that fired AJ Hinch and Jeff Lunau. Didn't really have much problem with what Jim Crane said, aside from the fact that the title should still be theirs and that they earned it. I don't believe that. Bregman and Altuve, the faces of the franchise, they apologized. And like I said, use the word apologize very loosely.
Yes.
It was written out, and it was about 3 sentences each.
If I knew how to do this, and we'll see if I do, but this would be the perfect time to add the scene from The Office. Have you seen it?
No.
It's Dwight. Do you know who Dwight is?
I think so.
The nerdy looking dude?
Oh, yeah.
And then Jim, the guy who always messes with him. Dwight was
Redheaded dude? Dude that was dating the one girl?
Yeah. What's his name? John Krasinski. Plays in The Quiet Place. Where they have to be quiet in
I'm
the woods.
not good with actors and movies and shows and stuff like that.
You've seen The Quiet Place where they
I
have to be
have,
quiet.
but I can't remember who's in the movie.
Okay. Anyway, so Dwight is reading a formal apology.
Okay.
And he pulls out his letter and he says, "I state my regret." And then he folds it up.
That is essentially what this was like.
And Jim says, "You couldn't have memorized that?" And Dwight responds, "I could not because I did not feel it." That I feel like that's exactly what this apology was.
And they may mean it or whatever the case may be, but when you're looking at this at surface level, there is no remorse at all for this. They're acting like they're the victims in this. I mean, even Altuve came out a couple weeks ago and was like, "Oh, people are doubting us. People don't believe in us anymore, and they're going to see that we're going to be world champions again." So they're acting like they're the victims in the situation. They're not. They did the deed.
They've done this to themselves.
Jim Crane, actually, another thing I did have a problem with what he said is he said that the players should not be penalized.
They should be.
Who's the one committing the crime? The player, whether it was AJ Hinch or Jeff Lunau or Carlos Beltran that put the system in play, the players are still the ones that agreed to do it.
Right. You commit the crime, you do the time.
Commit the crime, do the time. Cody Bellinger, he came out a couple days ago, had some strong remarks for the Astros. Just off the top of my head, can't remember exactly what he said, but he said stuff about how, they stole the title from them and Altuve shouldn't have been MVP, all that stuff. And then Carlos Correa, Astros shortstop, came out, had a statement for Cody Bellinger. This is kind of what he said. Some of the cliff notes. It was a long interview. He had a problem with what Cody Bellinger said. He said the problem I have is when players go out there and they don't know the facts, they're not informed about the situation, they just go out there and go on camera and just talk. He's referring to Cody Bellinger. With me, that doesn't sit right. It doesn't seem right at all. So when Bellinger talks about that we cheated for 3 years, he either doesn't know how. This is where it gets a little interesting. This is where talks about how that we cheated for 3 years. Either shows that he doesn't know how to read or is really bad at reading comprehension or is just not informed at all. This is what Correa is saying about Bellinger. The commissioner's report clearly says that all those activities were conducted in 2017, 2018. It says that those activities were conducted in 2017, and then he says 2018, nothing happened. And 2019, nothing happened. Which I think is a flat-out lie.
I think it's a lie.
Do you think that the Astros win the World Series in 2017, and then they just totally disregard the cheating system that they used to win the World Series, and then they make it to the ALCS in 2018, and then 2019 make the World Series? You think that there was no cheating involved in either of those 2 years?
No.
That I think that's a lie straight from Correa's mouth. He says it was just talented players playing the game of baseball with passion and winning ball games. If they did that in 2018 and 2019, why can't they have done that in 2017?
Right.
You had the same managerial staff, you had the same GM both those years, the same players that knew the system. Why were they not cheating at all in 2018-19? I don't believe a word of what he's saying. Then he says, for him to go out there and defame Jose Altuve's name like that doesn't sit right with me. Blah, blah, blah. Talks about how Mike Fiers broke the news and says that you can go talk to Mike Fiers. And he says that Mike Fiers will tell you that Altuve didn't cheat at all. Correa is saying that Altuve didn't cheat. This is what he said. He says Jose Altuve was the only player that didn't use it. Josh Reddick, Tony Kemp, those guys, they didn't want the trash can at all. They didn't want to cheat at all. So when he sits there and talks about Altuve, it's not facts. Here's also where I have a problem. Josh Reddick, Tony Kemp, two veterans on that team, and then Jose Altuve, who's the face of the franchise, they didn't want to participate in the cheating. I think if those guys don't want to participate in the cheating, I don't think the team should at all.
Right.
It doesn't make sense that those guys wouldn't and the rest of the guys would.
Right.
It does. It's not making much sense to me for Correa to say this. Then he says something about how Altuve was kind of apologizing on behalf of the team. And then he goes on, he says, for Bellinger to go out there and say that he lost respect for a 6-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, MVP, Gold Glover, that's been news for many years. Part of the reason he is an MVP was because he cheated that year. There's no evidence that tells us he didn't cheat.
Right.
There is all the evidence in the world telling us he did cheat.
Right.
And you also made the funny remark that he didn't want the trash cans because he was using a buzzer.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I saw a tweet the other day, and I can't find it right now, but a friend of mine liked it. I guess I didn't, which was unfortunate because I did enjoy it. But they were talking about how Altuve, you know, his history leading up to the MLB, how he was too short, he would never make it in the MLB, and then it's like, but now he's a, you know, MVP, he's won the World Series, blah, 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 all these different stats about him. And somebody replied to it, they're like, because he knew what pitch was going to happen before it happened.
Yep.
So I'm very interested to see if Altuve can keep up that level, which I don't think he can. Because you even saw it in the playoffs when he played at home and when he played away.
Yep.
You saw a distinct drop in his stats. I don't think that's coincidence. I think there's a direct correlation between the cheating and his performance.
I definitely agree. One thing I had a problem with as well is Justin Verlander. Verlander, if you think back, joined the Astros halfway through the season, was traded at the deadline from the Tigers to the Astros, won the World Series with them. Recently came out and said that he hopes that other teams will not retaliate in hitting them. He said these are guys that have families and have children. And I will also recall your memory to an interview Freddie Freeman had, in which Freeman was emotional about one of his friends that played in the big leagues and went through a bunch of injuries. And then once he finally got his shot once again, was against the Astros in Houston, got knocked around, and that was his very last appearance in Major League Baseball. Was released, never played again. So here's my response, is that these guys that you are cheating against, that you are cheating their opportunities to make more money by playing well, they have families and children as well. So your cheating affected that as well. And then let me also bring up the point that for years, for 100 years, for as long as the MLB has been around, there have been pitchers throwing at hitters. And pitchers, they have enough of a brain to know not to throw at the head. They have enough of a brain to know to put it right into their thigh. I'd be perfectly fine if Tyler Glasnow goes up there and puts 98 in Bregman's butt. And they deserve it. They deserve that. They deserve it. No one's going to die from a fastball hitting them in the leg. So they can calm down. They can take their hits. They've been cheating the league for 3 years now. They deserve it. I saw that tweet.
You retweeted it yesterday. I saw it. I loved it. The caption for the video says, Astros players in 2020 when their buzzer says an intentional hit by pitch is coming. And it's a dude playing some sort of video game with his headset on. And he just...
I mean, yeah.
That's exactly what's going to happen because they are going to get hit by multiple pitches this season by every single team. I would be surprised if the umpires before the game don't go up to the other team's pitchers and be like, don't. Because I know there's a lot of times where you know there's going to be a heated game.
Yeah.
And the umpires will be like, don't start anything. You'll get ejected right away.
Yeah.
And I you've seen it before. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that happen. I don't think the league should let that happen because, if the league's not going to punish the Astros players, somebody needs to.
Yep. Someone has to.
Yeah.
And then I thought the one thing I did see right before we started was the fact that 2 California Little Leagues banned the use of Houston Astros for any of their Little League teams, which I think is just awesome. And it'd be even funnier if they're in LA. I wasn't sure what the location was. But apparently parents were mad at the fact that the teams were going to be using Astros as their team. And I totally agree with them too. I mean, the MLB is a league that's doing their best to cater to young fans nowadays, now that the MLB seems to be declining in fan base. And so you're really trying to cater to young fans, especially kids. You got a lot of kids watching the games, and you don't want them to, be watching a team that's cheating. Correct. You don't want that to be, sewed into their lives essentially. So
right.
I like that those little leagues they did that.
Right. The first part of this tweet, I'm just reading straight from tweets, get you to the news. First tweet by a gentleman named Rob Harris. Find him on Twitter, @RobHarris. Breaking news yesterday, Manchester City, it's a soccer club in England, has been banned from Champions League for 2 seasons by the UEFA and fined 30 million euros.
Wow. I don't know how much that is, but it sounds like a lot.
To which, this was quote retweeted. You would never guess who quote retweeted this.
I could see it.
Buffalo Wild Wings. Buffalo Wild Wings quote retweeted this and said, "That's how you punish a team that cheats."
I love it.
So there was that.
They got good wings too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I prefer the boneless.
But for sure.
Yeah.
Honey barbecue or garlic parmesan.
I mean, they're basically just chicken nuggets. But I don't like to eat around the bone.
Yeah.
I like to just, get straight. Anyway, totally off topic. Also, the other day, I think it was the day after Raids Fan Fest, which would have been last Sunday, Charlie Morton came out and said that he wished he would have done more to stop the Astros cheating.
Yeah.
Because he was part of the team in 2017. And, he was present while they were cheating. And he wishes that he had actually done the right thing and stepped up rather than just saying, I'm not going to participate. Which, if these veterans, what'd you say, Kemp?
Tony Kemp, Josh Reddick, Brian McCann was on that team too.
If you have all these leaders on this team, you would think that if you don't want to be part of the team, that you would stop it as a whole.
Yeah.
If you're gonna step up to the mantle, this is your team. Step up and stop it. But these guys, for some reason, were just passive. No, we don't want to be a part of it.
I don't think there was any of that. I think they all were a part of it.
I think they were all part
there's
of it.
There's no evidence that shows us that there wasn't anybody that chose not to do it. I think everybody was in on it. There's nothing that can tell me different. If there is, and I find out, well, whoop-de-doo. But there's evidence that guys have cheated on that team. Their title needs to be vacated. And dudes just got to get hit this year.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
And lastly, I think it's lastly. Did you have anything else on this
No,
topic?
that's it.
Lastly, I thought I had a fire tweet yesterday, but nobody liked it, so I'm a little sad. But I'm gonna read it to you because maybe you'll go check it out and like it. On my Twitter, at I'm the Johnson. No apostrophes, no hyphenations, no commas, no underscores. Just I'm the Johnson. Anyway, the tweet, and I quote: "Not only did the Astros steal signs, but they may have stolen the Yankees' spot as the most hated franchise in the MLB. Ironically, it makes it the second thing the Astros have stolen from the Yankees since October, along with a World Series appearance."
So you basically trashed the Yankees and the Astros in one tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
You triggered Astros fans and Yankees fans.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of helped out the Yankees. You're not the most hated team anymore. The Astros are.
If the Astros are playing the Yankees, I'm cheering for the Yankees in that game.
And the Yankees were cheated twice. In the game, their signs were stolen. Their title as most hated team was stolen.
Yeah.
And
cheated out of World Series.
Yeah, cheated out of World Series. Astros, trash Stros.
We'll see you in the Trop, April 10th through 13th, 10th through 12th, I think it is.
There will be themed nights.
We will see you in the Trop, Houston.
With my video cameras, with my trash cans, and with my buzzers.
Yep. We'll see you. Like this video, comment what you think about this whole thing. Subscribe to the channel. Check us out on the socials. Check out our personal socials. Check out the Elevated Sports socials. Check out the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll see you later.